Thank y'all. It's actually great to be here. I've been waiting to talk to y'all for a long time. I don't know how much time y'all gonna give me. I can talk forever. I see y'all got Jay Jumonville here. Y'all putting some pressure on me. Look, let me say this. First of all, Bernard, thanks for the great introduction. When I got involved in this, some people questioned why. And so I want y'all to know something. As I was growing up as a young boy in St. Martinville, I had a great uncle who was a horseman and owned racing horses. And so my mom and them during the summers, they would send me out because he had a grandson that was same age as me. And of course, on top of all the trouble we'd get into, they'd send us down to the farm so we could, paint the pipe fences and clean the stalls and, do things that 10 and 11 and 12-year-olds need to do when they get in a lot of trouble. And so it was great times. In fact, I remember he used to wake us up so we could drive him to the track. I don't even know if we had driver's licenses back then. And of course, we'd stay out all night doing things we probably shouldn't have done. And I can still hear him knocking on the door. And he didn't speak much English. He spoke in French. And he'd, levez, y'all get up, boys. We got to go. And we'd go watch the horses in the morning. So horse racing is important to me because it's a culture here in Louisiana. And as the Attorney General, I've always believed that my job was to protect the state, her people, her culture, and her traditions. And when the HISA law came into effect, I knew that there was a problem because I had spent a couple of years in Congress, and I know that anything you stick in an omnibus or in a special bill is trouble. And I knew that when they put the horse racing integrity, I can't even figure out how they say it anymore. When they put HISA into the bill, and it was a COVID-19 bill, I was like, I got to read this one. Because I knew it couldn't be good for us. In fact, anything they stick in an omnibus is good for a few and bad for the American people. And so as we started going through it, I started making some calls. And of course, we all know that the reasons why they claimed to have passed a law, but in Washington, they never let a good crisis go to waste. And we all know that, I think we all can agree that we want integrity and safety in horse racing. And certainly, we know that we have bad actors. I mean, God forbid, I'm a lawyer. How many bad actors you think in that profession? And a politician. My dad hates both of them, so trust me, it's bad. But we have, for centuries, really here in Louisiana, been able to police our own. And many of you come from other states as well, and I don't know how long those traditions of horse racing have been in those states, but certainly you've been able to police yourselves in those states. And so we should never let one bad actor or a bad incident define who we are and who an industry is. Because Washington loves to do that. And when they do that, they take away our freedoms and our liberties. And they take on the responsibilities that we claim we have, and they do it in a manner that certainly you won't like and are not gonna like. And so I started talking to folks. I called them up and said, hey, did y'all see this HISA legislation? It's a new law. Oh, yeah, it's gonna be fine. It's a little deal. A couple of my friends said, hey, I think it's going to be all right. I'm like, no, it's not going to be all right. I'm just telling y'all, this is going to be a problem. And so we started figuring out how we were going to attack this piece of legislation in the courts. We've got a great Solicitor General's office here in Louisiana. It's led by a woman by the name of Liz Murrow, who I tell people I supply the courage and that team supplies the brains. And the more we started peeling back that onion, the more we recognized that it was going to be a problem. And so we decided to file suit. And of course, I remember when we filed suit, we started getting some calls, from some powerful politicians telling us that we shouldn't get involved. And we didn't. And of course, I don't know if y'all know me, J.E., and I know Mr. Keynote's in here. A couple of folks, they know me. I don't back down. That's a big problem I had when I was young. It caused me to meet my dad's belt a couple of times, but when I stand for something that's right, I'm not going to back down. It really doesn't matter who it is that's calling us. And so I kept telling them, no, we're going to file this lawsuit. And we called other states, and we tried to put a coalition together. And we did. We kind of put a hodgepodge, and we went after it. I remember having to go to the Racing Commission and walking them through why this was going to be a problem. Well, by that time, people were starting to see. You were starting to feel the impact of a law that basically creates a one-size-fits-all in this country. And it basically is designed that when it's all going to be said and done, if we don't get this thing struck down, this room, well, you better have this meeting in probably the dining room, and I mean the small dining room here at the Mont-Leon. It'll be a bunch of folks that got more money in their pockets than they know what to do with, and they're going to control the tracks and the horse racing and everything else, and the rest of us really won't be able to enjoy the sport. Because I remember back in the day when there were bush tracks, okay? I remember that, horse racing was a sport that could be shared by all. It didn't matter the size of your pocket or who you were. You could go and enjoy your time at the track. But that's what this law is designed to do. It is actually designed to eliminate the very fabric of horse racing. And so we stood up. And we went before the commission, and we explained why we were taking this on. And, of course, I remember, and is there any press in here? Because sometimes I get things wrong, and they always get it wrong. But, we filed in Kentucky, or we didn't file in Kentucky. There was a suit that was filed in Kentucky, and it wasn't going all that well. And then there was a suit that was filed in Texas, and then we filed in Louisiana. And I told him, I said, we are going to keep filing suits, and we're going to find a way to bring this thing to the U.S. Supreme Court if we have to. And by God, I'm telling you, guess what? We're there. And I'm glad we're there. Now, I know the Sixth Circuit decision was not all that great for us, but quite frankly, I think it was, because it is going to absolutely force this case before the United States Supreme Court. And let me tell you, this, in my opinion, outside of horse racing, is actually one of the most important cases that are going to go before the court this century. Because this case, if this law is upheld, there is no breath, there is nothing that is out of reach of the federal government. There is no industry, there is no activity, there is nothing that those boys in Washington can't lay their hands on. And the fact that we live in states is actually irrespectable at that particular point in time. Because there's nothing that they will not be able to do. So understand that what we have in front of you all, what you are standing up with us on, is basically whether or not this is actually a free country. Whether or not the states that make up the United States have sovereignty, have the ability to police their own activities, have the ability to engage in their own cultures and traditions, and to protect them. Because I don't believe that horse racing is a one-size-fits-all. And I'm not about to go tell folks in Florida or New York how exactly they should conduct their horse racing, or Kentucky. And I don't want them to come down to Louisiana and tell me how we should. But let me go back. I think that can't we all agree that we want integrity and safety in horse racing? How many of y'all want that? Y'all raise your hands. Now, y'all don't think that the states that engage in horse racing have the ability to collectively come to some agreement or figure out a way to allow the activity to continue through those particular states. I mean, the fellas that are writing the laws don't even know how to shoe a horse, but yet they want to regulate a horse shoe. How many of you think ever put a shoe on a horse? Huh? How many? Really? I mean, seriously, I think it's funny. I mean, I really do. Huh? True. And then to add insult to injury, this law is paid for on the backs of you all, on those who labor the hardest and sometimes receive the least. I mean, it's the jockeys, the trainers, the vets, the owners. You pay for it. Uncle Sam says, we like this law, whether you had any part in it, you got no opportunity to debate whether you think the provisions were right or wrong or indifferent. We signed this into law. We're going to regulate you, and you're going to pay for it. How y'all like that? Huh? But that's what this thing says. This basically, again, creates an opportunity for a handful of elite people to dictate the rules of the game. And for those of you that have helped us and joined us, I want to say thank you. Because from where we started when we were just a few to where we are today is a much different place. And it's only because of you. It's only because of those of you who have recognized that this is a problem, who have started to feel the boot of this piece of law, and who have finally said enough is enough. And I think, quite frankly, this country has had enough. It's had enough of Washington telling the people of this country how to act, what to wear, how to dress, how to conduct themselves, and by God, they're even trying to tell us how to race our horses. And if you stand with us, and I mean it, because going to that Supreme Court is going to be a reach. And if you stand with us, and if you continue to encourage the vets and the trainers and the jockeys and everyone else to participate in this piece of legislation, I really do believe, that we can affect a minimum of 5 of those justices on the court. And when we do, and when we win, we will be able to go back to racing horses. We will be able to police ourselves. We will recognize that the integrity and the safety of horse racing can be intact, and that is not placed into the hands of a few. Is that my time to go? Does that mean I got to shut up? Who was that? I like that. I need that ringtone. Jay, was that you telling me to stop? Huh? Or where's Keynote? But look, it's also important that you stand behind, for those of y'all who are in other states, if your attorney generals are standing with us, please do me a favor and tell them thank you. Lord knows that the positions we in, we get all the complaints, and we don't get a whole lot of attaboys, you know. But if you are from one of those states, I would highly encourage you, when you see your attorney general, to pat him on the back, or her. And if you're from a state that the attorney general hadn't got involved, you should call him up. And you should let them know why it is so important that they engage in this litigation. They don't have to at this point intervene, although we'll take them. But certainly as we go to the Supreme Court, as we file for the writs, it would be nice to have states that maybe haven't engaged do things like write an amici, right? Write a friend of the court, associations that haven't to do that as well. When we think about the overall impact of this law on the industry as a whole and what it can have for small businesses, I think having many of those voices, I think, are important as well. And so I just wanted to really come and tell you, thank you. Thank you for helping us. Thank you for standing by us, and let you know that I believe there's a better option for us than this law. I believe that in the end, that option hopefully is going to be placed back in the power of the people, because that's what makes this country so great, is that we get to chart our own destiny. We get to control our own path. We get to determine what the rules of engagement are, state by state. And so I just, again, wanted to say thank you. Really and truly, that's all I really came here to do, is to say thank you for standing with us, and thank you for standing for freedom and for liberty and for sovereignty. And I'm going to tell you, when this is all over with, we're going to give you a case, and we're going to give you a decision from the United States Supreme Court that is going to absolutely make you happy to say that you're an American, to say that you're a Mississippian, a Louisianian, a Kentuckian, and a Tennessean. So God bless you. God bless the industry. Thank you so very much. He told me I get to ask a few questions. Y'all can ask a few questions. Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. If any of y'all have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer what I can. Yes, ma'am.
Nebraska is a party to this lawsuit, tracks with the owner of the party, but without the Louisiana Attorney General standing behind us, I firmly believe that regardless of our argument, we would not have gotten as far as we did. So thank you.
Hey, look, let me say, some of the states that came on, that finally did come on, don't be too hard on them. Sometimes it just takes other people a little more time to understand the severity of things. But I can promise you, it wasn't me on my own that was able to bring many of those states on. It was really you. I mean, I cannot emphasize enough the power that you all have. Do not take it lightly. The more conversations you can have, the more pressure you can put on your elected officials, the better off these things are in helping us. So, thank you for the comment, but I'm going to tell you, you were just as much a part of getting Nebraska on board as we were.
Does anybody have any other questions? Well, you got off easy.
All right. I did. Thank y'all so
Well,
much.
thank you so much.
And look, I hope to see many of you, and I mean this, as this case continues to move out and the court ultimately grants writs and then we get a date for oral arguments, I would love to see this industry come out on the steps of the United States Supreme Court so that we can tell the world how important horse racing is to us. Thank you.
Thank you.